Pastor, doesn't science disprove the Bible?
Isn't Genesis just a fairy tale?
Is God for real? Did he really create everything in 6 literal days?
Didn't God just use the Big Bang?
Why is there death and suffering? Really believe the Bible?
Didn't man evolve from apes?
For answers to these questions and more, stand by for Believing the Bible.
Welcome to Believing the Bible. This is Scott Lane with Terry Reed, Dr. Carl Williams, and our producer Ed Salzadell, all directors at the San Antonio Bible-Based Science Association. We are here to reassure you can believe the Bible from the very first verse. Again today we have Dr. Matthew Cserhati, a researcher at the UT Health Science Center, San Antonio. We hear a lot about differing missing links, and the point is they're still missing. One of those is the Neanderthal. What do we know about that today?
Okay, so previously the picture that we had about Neanderthals was that they were some sort of missing link between apes and human beings. And then this view was modified recently in anthropology that Neanderthals were sort of like a side branch of humans. But I would like to talk about actually a secular book, The Neanderthals Rediscovered, How Modern Science is Rewriting Their Story. It is the winner of the 2015 Society for American Archaeology Book Award. And so what this book basically says is that in sum, Neanderthals were practically the same as modern humans, just like you and me. They've discovered mixed fossils which show modern human and Neanderthal characteristics. Svante Pääbo, who's a Swedish researcher in Germany who has studied the genomics of Neanderthal, basically states that every single one of us, in some percent, between 1 to 5% of our genomes, comes from Neanderthal. Just yesterday, I spoke with somebody at the university. She analyzed her whole genome, this 23andMe program, and she answered all the questions. And she said that she found out that she has a lot of genetic material coming from Neanderthals. So this means that Neanderthals and humans interbred, meaning that according to the biological species concept, we're one species.
Right, Neanderthals are still here. In fact, we're sitting around the table right now.
And we are they and they are us. So like we have met the enemy and they are us. We're not an enemy because we're all the same. But what this book basically says, it's really eye-opening that it describes that Neanderthals, they used medicine like from like tree leaves. They extracted some sort of substance which could have been similar to aspirin. They cared for the sick. They had hunting patterns when they hunted animals. They had composite tools, or they had tools which made other tools. They had trading networks. They also had a hyoid bone, which is necessary for speech, just as humans do. The FOXP2 protein, which is necessary for proper speech formation, has the exact same sequence in Neanderthals and also in humans, with some mutations between humans and other mammals like chimpanzees. And also, I myself have studied the Neanderthal genome sequence in a secular paper of mine recently accepted. And what we can see is that the Neanderthal genome is structurally very, very similar to the genome of modern human, potentially very similar. That also, on a micro level, if you look at certain genetic elements, there's like a human accelerated region which contains a lot of mutations. They call it accelerated regions because they think that there were a lot of mutations introduced into this stretch of DNA, which led from ape to human. But we can see that compared to other mammal species, like for example apes, there are a large number of mutations separating the human variant of this genetic region, like separating humans from apes and other mammals. But this stretch of the genome is exactly the same sequentially in modern humans and also Neanderthals, which again suggests that modern humans and Neanderthals were the same species with a bit of variation.
It's interesting you would say that. I was doing a presentation years ago, and I had 4 medical doctors in the presentation that I was doing, and I showed a representation of a Neanderthal skull, Homo sapien, and Cro-Magnon.
Yeah.
And one of the doctors commented, he said, I've had all 3 of those skull types walk into my office this week. And the other 3 guys said, yeah, I have too.
Right.
We're talking about averages in terms of skull size here. And the human genome is very varied in terms of that. And these averages don't tell the whole story.
Right. I mean, and for example, like human skull size can vary between something like 1,100 cubic centimeters and I think maybe 1,600 cubic centimeters, and also there are like sexual differences between men and women. And interestingly, if evolutionists say that the humans the size of the skull increased during human evolution, we'd have to admit that Neanderthals are more intelligent than us because their skulls are on average larger than ours. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't fit the evolutionary story.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, since Neanderthals are clearly human from everything you've told us, what made them think that they were not like modern humans? What made them think
originally 150 years ago, they didn't have enough fossil evidence because, for example, they found a Neanderthal skeleton in Croatia in chainmail, meaning that it was a person from the Middle Ages. Mm-hmm. Like the thicker bones, Neanderthals have somewhat thicker bones. It could have been due to some illness, maybe scurvy or gout, that Neanderthals, some of these fossil specimens were found in like more northern latitudes, and maybe possibly vitamin D deficiency could have made the bones thicker. But then again, there's a lot of variation in human.
So basically, the scientists found what they were looking for. They were looking for some missing link, and that's what they found. They found something a little buried.
Well, I think that human variation in the past could have been greater, and just as our secular molecular biology professor stated that the human genome underwent a bottleneck effect. So that means that prior to the flood, the human genome could have been a lot more varied. So I think that human fossils allow for a bit of variation. That they may seem a little bit more varied than what we find in modern humans, but it's still they can still fit into the human species. In fact, the NCBI database has Neanderthal sequences, and Neanderthal is listed as Homo sapiens neanderthalensis in NCBI, meaning that it's widespread knowledge that Neanderthals are Homo sapiens.
You are listening to Believing the Bible. This is Scott Lane with Terry Reed and Dr. Carl Williams. If you would like to learn more, go to sabsa.org. That is sabbsa.org. Today we have Dr. Matthew Cserhati with us. We've been talking about Neanderthals. We're going to switch that in just a moment. First, one of the interesting things that happened was several years ago, there was a Darwin exhibit here at the Whitty Museum. And one of the things they had in that Darwin exhibit was that they had a panorama of skulls going all the way from the smallest mammalian up to human. Yeah. And there was a little girl there who was about 8 or 9 years old. And I said, which one's us? And, of course, she picked the one at the top, which was logical, except it wasn't us. Who was it? It was Neanderthal. It was Neanderthal because they have larger brain capacity on average. Mm-hmm. Folks, what is that larger brain capacity supposed to mean? More brains, smarter, and all that kind of stuff, which they would carry forward in every other analysis, but they try to discount it with the Neanderthal. Is there some bias there?
Obviously, I would think so, but because I think that it just simply doesn't fit in the progression of the early Homo to modern human. But again, as I said, that there are people with smaller skulls. Women generally tend to have smaller skulls. You can't really look inside the brain of an extinct hominin or extinct human, because intelligence is really all about how your neurons are interconnected.
Right.
So that's a basic.
Switching gears for the last 2 minutes of the program. Other languages. You have a copy of the Journal of Creation, which has a Babel representation on it. You have a special background in being in command of German, English, and Hungarian. I have troubles just with English. What do you see in that whole discussion with languages?
For example, I think that languages are simplifying over time. For example, if you look at Latin, the older version of Latin, you can feel that it came from Greek, and I'm studying Greek at seminary. And you can see that Latin gave birth to the Romance languages like French or Spanish. The Germanic languages also have an ancient form called the Gothic language, and knowing German and also Dutch and also English and also I've also studied a language called Afrikaans, which is the language of the white people in South Africa. it's very interesting to see that languages, they lose cases, like verbal systems, they tend to become more unified. Like in French, you have 3 different ways of the infinitive. Now they're tending towards using only one version of the infinitive, like der, die, das, that is the article in German. You have 3 articles in German, 2 in Dutch, and only 1 in English. Mm-hmm. Or like people, they tend to cut up words with simplify words or use acronyms. This transition from a more complex language, like let's say German, through Dutch and then to Afrikaans. If you know these languages, if you've read text in these languages, you can get the feeling that they're interrelated with each other. The Germans and Dutch people, they can sort of speak with one another. And they can understand each other on a basic level. But you get the feeling that words are simplified and that different grammatical constructs are simply lost.
And that's an interesting comment you're making, because you see languages simplifying down, not expanding.
Like our
genome. Etc. And if the Babel and dispersion account is correct, then there was the instant creation of all of these languages, and they would not be continually expanding from that point. They would be contracting down, which is what you're seeing.
Or they would be, could we say, devolving, or like becoming simple?
Right.
Which means that at the beginning there was a complex language, but the big question is, how did apes ever evolve something from super simple, like basically grunts, to classical Latin? There is no evidence for it whatsoever.
No evidence for that at all, and we thank you. Information for creation events in our area are on our website's calendar page. For more information or to schedule a presentation, go to sabsa.org or call 210-599-7240. When you go to our website, you can click on a link to our newsletter. Our website has a link for contact information on which you can order our newsletter to be emailed to you, or you can call us. Also go to whyshouldyoubelieve.com. That is Terry's website containing articles looking at current day issues from a biblical perspective. SABSA meets the second Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. We are now meeting at Faith Lutheran Church just south of the corner of Jones Maltzberger and Thousand Oaks. There you will find biblical apologetics and creation science teaching found nowhere else in Bexar County, as well as the availability of books and videos on these important subjects. If you missed any part of this show, you can listen to the show anytime by going to the AM 630 KSLR, the Word in South Texas website. Click on KSLR Podcast, scroll down until you find Believing the Bible. Please join us again next Saturday for Believing the Bible. I'm Scott Lane, and for Terry Reed, Dr. Carl Williams, and Ed Salzveld, thanks for listening, and we hope you found today a reason to believe the Bible.